It was April 30th, 1997. Inside this Miramar home on South Crescent Drive, a brutal quadruple murder. Police discovered 29-year-old Marie Altidor and her two young daughters, Sabrina, 6 weeks old, and 2-year-old Samantha, and Altidor's mother, Theresia Laverne.
It's like one of the most gruesome crime that ever took place in our city.
This video shows Marie's husband, George Altidor, arrive at the crime scene that day, and 28 years later, this family still wants justice.
It is, yes, 28 years, but for us, it's 28 seconds.
Today, we shine light on the unsolved case of the Miramar Massacre, a crime that took the lives of 3 generations of one family and remains one of the most disturbing cases in the city's history. The Altidor family appeared to be living the American dream, a religious, growing middle-class family in what seemed like a close-knit household. George Altidor, originally from Haiti, was seen as a hard-working provider. He worked as a supervisor at a marine air conditioning plant in Hialeah, Florida, and a real estate salesman on the side. To some, he appeared to be a devoted husband and father, but to others, he seemed distant, controlling, and unpredictable. A man some described as having a Jekyll and Hyde personality. George's wife, 29-year-old Marie Carmel Laverne Altidor, who was referred to as Mommy by those closest to her, was also from Haiti. Born in July of 1967, Marie was described as elegant, soft-spoken, and encouraging. She spoke 4 different languages and worked for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. A devoted wife and loving mother, Marie's life revolved around her family. And despite her quiet and shy nature, she had a playful sense of humor. She always tried to make people laugh, her sister recalled. George and Marie were active members of the Haitian Evangelical Baptist Church in North Miami, Florida. Their faith appeared to be a central part of their lives. The couple had 2 young daughters. Samantha, 2 years old, was born in December of 1994. She was described as sweet, playful, and full of energy. And born in March of 1997, 1-month-old Sabrina, a precious newborn. Temporarily staying with the couple was Marie's mother, 69-year-old Theresia Laverne. The matriarch of the family, Theresia was well respected in the Haitian community. She was known for her generosity and her unwavering devotion to her loved ones. A mother of 5 and a grandmother to many, she had traveled from Haiti to help Marie during this new chapter. Marie and George's story began just a few years earlier in 1993. When they connected during a chance encounter at a mall in North Miami Beach, shortly after Marie immigrated to Florida from Haiti. Though they had known of each other as children in Haiti, this was the first time they truly connected. At the time, George was 30 years old, had been divorced for about 2 years, and was the father of 1 son. Marie was 26 years old and had only been focused on her education and career. And her family stated that she had never been in a serious relationship when the two met. However, George and Marie started dating and the relationship moved quickly. And in less than a year, on February 12, 1994, they were married. Soon after, Marie became pregnant with their first daughter, Samantha. The couple started out in a small apartment in Miami, before purchasing a home in July of 1995 in a small suburban neighborhood on the 8800 block of South Crescent Drive in a subdivision called the Knolls, located in Miramar, Florida. In the early 1990s, Miramar was often described as a quiet suburb with a small-town feel and little-known crime, and this neighborhood was an area described as established, charming, and peaceful. Neighbors would later describe the Altidors as cordial but private. Some even stated they were the best neighbors you could ever want, but those closest to Marie saw something different. Although Marie was private about her personal life, from the very beginning her family felt that something wasn't right. During the time Marie was on maternity leave, she spent most of her days inside the home. Neighbors and acquaintances would later say it was rare to see Marie, the children, or her mother Theresia. According to those closest to her, this wasn't by accident. Family members believed George was controlling Marie, the same behavior his first wife described years earlier. They said he kept Marie isolated, and over time she began to change. She became distant, fearful, and even paranoid. On the evening of April 29, 1997, two of Marie's cousins stopped by the home. It was a short visit, but according to them, something felt off. They later described the atmosphere as awkward and uncomfortable. Still, they didn't think much of it at the time. During the visit, they remembered Marie answering a phone call. Then she told George it was someone calling about an air conditioning appointment. According to George, after dinner that evening, he left home to service the AC unit for a woman named Florence Dalton, who lived about a mile away. He claimed he wasn't able to finish the job that evening and left around 8 p.m., planning to return the next day. He said when he returned home, his family was gathered in the family room, watching television. He stated he joined them briefly before going to take a shower. Afterwards, he said he turned on the alarm system and the family went to bed. He claimed he fell asleep around midnight. According to George Altidor's account, April 30th, 1997 began like any other. George stated he woke up around 6 a.m. to get ready for work. He said Sabrina was awake, so he warmed a bottle and woke up Marie to feed her. He grabbed his lunch from the refrigerator that Theresia had prepared the night before, placed it near the door, and continued getting ready for work. Then he claimed he returned to the bedroom, and he and Marie spent a few quiet moments together. He said he left for work at approximately 7 a.m. and arrived at his job in Hialeah, Florida at around 7:30 a.m. Around 7:20 a.m. that morning, a neighbor outside with his dog stated he noticed George's black Toyota pickup truck was gone. The house was quiet as usual, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. A few hours later, around 9:30 a.m., two Jehovah's Witnesses stopped by the home. They knocked several times, but no one answered. That alone wasn't unusual, but they later said even if Marie didn't open the door, she would usually peek through the curtain and acknowledge them. This time, there was nothing. At around 2 p.m., George claimed he tried calling home, but there was no answer. He said he called multiple times and began to worry. He then claimed he tried reaching a neighbor to go check on the house, but that neighbor didn't answer, and he left no message. That neighbor would later say that they couldn't confirm receiving any call from George that day. So at around 4:30 p.m., George called his brother-in-law, Roshner Seraphin, who lived nearby in Pembroke Pines, Florida, and asked him to go check on the family. About 30 minutes later, at around 5 p.m., Roshner and his 12-year-old son arrived at the house. After knocking several times with no answer, Roshner stated they tried the doorknob. It was unlocked and the alarm system did not activate. The moment they stepped inside, they were met with a gruesome scene. Panicked and screaming, they ran to the neighbor's home, pleading for them to call the police. When detectives arrived and entered the home, the television in the family room was still on. Baby Sabrina was found first. She was lying on her back in her bassinet, placed in front of the television. She had suffered approximately 5 blows to the head. Just a few feet away, Theresia was found face down on the kitchen floor. It appeared she had been preparing food when she was attacked. The medical examiner would later determine she had been struck in the head about 24 times before being shot. Marie was found in the formal dining room near the sliding glass door. Her injuries told a different story. Investigators believe she had tried to run. She had been shot multiple times and struck in the head at least 19 times. Her wounds were the most severe, and her body showed evidence of a desperate struggle. And then there was Samantha, who was initially missed during the police search. This was due to her small size, and because she was tucked into a tight space between a recliner and love seat in the family room, a place where her family said she often played and used as a hiding place. She was found curled into a fetal position, holding her stuffed animal. She had been struck in the head over 20 times. Because all of the victims were still in their pajamas, investigators believe the attack likely happened either late at night or early in the morning hours. Detectives would describe the crime as overkill and personal. The level of violence inside the home was overwhelming. It was later determined that a hammer had been used during the attack, a weapon that was never recovered. On the wall in the family room, written in black marker, there was a message that investigators believe was a deliberate attempt to throw them off.
It was a brutal slaying, overkill, and very personal. 26 years, this is the worst crime. These are the worst crimes I've ever seen.
Amid the bloody crime scene, police found the children bludgeoned to death, the two adults beaten and shot. Also inside, a message.
A wall with a message scribbled in black marker. That message saying, quote, "I want my 100,000 drug money. They stole my drugs." But lead detective Danny Smith says they believe that message was simply meant to mislead investigators.
That's something you see on TV. That's something that I believe, and investigators here at the Miramar Police Department believe, is a complete farce.
The detective tells us they can confirm 100% no one in this family was associated with drugs at all.
Another detail that stood out, the home's alarm system had not been activated that morning, which was unusual. In the months leading up to the massacre, the household had a documented history of security concerns. Marie and her mother, Theresia, had grown increasingly fearful and paranoid. Miramar police records showed they had called for assistance multiple times, reporting concerns of feeling unsafe. But each time officers responded, they reported they found nothing, no external threats or anything suspicious on the property. Detectives stated the scene was set up to look like a home invasion, but there were no valuables missing and no signs of forced entry. In fact, every entry point to the home was unlocked. Outside, roaming the backyard near the pool area, the family dog was discovered. But neighbors reportedly heard no barking or no signs of distress, as if the presence of whoever entered the home hadn't alarmed the dog at all, which raised a chilling possibility that maybe it was someone the dog already knew. To investigators, this didn't seem random. Whoever was responsible may have been familiar with the family, or someone who had easy access to the home. Shortly after 5 p.m., George arrived home. After learning what happened to his family, he became emotional and overwhelmed with grief.
Marie's husband, George Altidor, was visibly distraught in the hours after the murder.
As word spread, neighbors began to gather outside the home. Among them was Florence Dalden. She spoke to reporters confirming that George, also known as Sherry, had been at her home the night before. According to her, everything seemed fine.
What happened? No, they were. I know you talk to Sherry more than I do. Do you know of any problems? Was there any problem?
No problem. He was over my house yesterday. He's supposed to be home tonight, over my house tonight.
He's supposed to meet with you?
Yes, tonight. Yesterday was over my house at 7 o'clock. Everything went fine. as far as I know. And they never had any problems.
In other statements to the media, Florence said she had been a longtime friend of the family. She described Marie as a kind, saint-like person and suggested the crime may have been driven by jealousy. A massive investigation began immediately, and from the very start, detectives focused on George Altidor. At the police station, George told investigators that when he left that morning, his family was alive and well. He described his marriage as loving and peaceful, and said he couldn't think of anyone who would want to harm his family. But investigators dug deeper, and questions began to surface. When questioned, George told police that he and Marie had not been intimate since the birth of their youngest child. However, an autopsy later revealed the presence of recent semen, and DNA testing confirmed it belonged to George. In the kitchen, investigators found 3 pots of food on the stove, containing rice and beans, stewed chicken, and plantains. George confirmed it was the same meal the family had eaten for dinner the night before, but he claimed he hadn't noticed the pots on the stove that morning. Medical examiners would later determine that Theresia, Marie, and Samantha had not eaten recently, and that at least 4 hours had passed since their last meal, suggesting dinner had been the last time they ate. But Sabrina had been fed more recently, a detail that helped narrow the timeline of the crime and raised important questions. Had Theresia gotten up early to prepare breakfast, warm up leftovers, or had the crime already taken place during the night, not long after dinner? Because of a critical mistake made from the very beginning, the timeline of what happened inside that home was already unraveling. Due to inexperience, first responders and initial investigators failed to record the victims' core body temperatures at the scene before their bodies were moved, a key piece of information normally used to help determine time of death. Without this data, there was no clear starting point and no precise window, only estimates. Then, as the questioning continued, George told investigators that Marie had planned to go out that morning to register the girls for daycare, since she was expected to return to work soon. He also mentioned that his mother-in-law, Theresia, was set to fly back to Haiti that coming Saturday. But days later, family members told investigators something different. Marie's Lexus wasn't drivable. When they inspected the vehicle, they discovered that the electrical relay module had been removed, making the car impossible to drive. When confronted, George later produced the missing part, claiming he had removed it himself to find a replacement because the car had been acting up. This further undermined his version of the morning's events. Investigators also examined his alibi. However, his co-workers could not confirm what time he had arrived to work. And since he was a supervisor, he wasn't required to punch in. And there were no cameras available at the building. When tested, investigators stated they found no gunshot residue on George. A week later, George agreed to take a polygraph test. Investigators said several of his answers were deceptive. His handwriting was analyzed twice during the investigation to compare to the message left on the family wall. While it was determined that there were some similarities, there were not enough for a conclusive match, so the results were ruled inconclusive. As the investigation continued, detectives would discover that on April 30th, at exactly 7:09 a.m., a phone call was placed from the Altidor's home. The call was made to Marie's godfather, Max, in Silver Spring, Maryland. Max's wife, Helene, answered. She later told investigators that when she picked up the phone, the caller didn't speak right away. Instead, she heard what sounded like someone clearing their throat. Once she said hello for the second time, the caller responded, claiming to be Marie. According to Helene, The caller said she was calling to let them know she had recently given birth. The call lasted about 2 minutes, but something about it felt off. Helene told investigators that the call was unexpected, being that they didn't speak to Marie often. Helene also stated that it was early and she was half asleep when she answered. Later, when questioned again, Helene admitted she wasn't completely sure it was Marie on the phone. In fact, she said if the caller hadn't identified herself, she wouldn't have recognized the voice at all. To Marie's family, the call made even less sense. They said Marie wasn't close to her godfather or his wife. They rarely spoke, and she would have never called that early in the morning. So investigators were left with questions. If it wasn't Marie, then who made the call? And most importantly, how did it fit into the timeline? Because Helene couldn't positively identify the caller, the phone call remained circumstantial. Just 4 days after the crime, George hired a cleaning crew to thoroughly clean the home, a decision that raised serious concerns for both investigators and the victim's family. By this point, the house had already been processed and released back to him. But police would later admit that releasing the scene so quickly may have been a critical mistake, because whatever evidence remained inside that home was now gone. George never lived in the house again, and he never went back to work. On May 10, 1997, family and friends gathered in Miami Gardens to say goodbye to Marie, Samantha, and baby Sabrina. George sat in the front row, surrounded by his family, with Florence Dalton also in attendance. Some of Marie's family members felt his grief didn't seem genuine. Just weeks later, on May 30th, the funeral for Theresia was held in Haiti. George attended her funeral by himself. During the height of the investigation, George lived with his sister and brother-in-law in Pembroke Pines, Florida. With support of his family and friends, he lived in seclusion for months as the investigation intensified around him. In the weeks that followed, his cooperation with investigators began to fade. By October of 1997, George Altidor had stopped cooperating entirely. He hired a lawyer and showed no further concerns regarding the investigation. He also cut off all contact with Marie's family.
I'd love to talk to him. I personally haven't had an official sit-down interview with George Altidor. He's been asked by his, or he's been given advice by his attorneys to not speak with us. So, but yeah, I'd love to speak with him.
Then in 2001, 4 years after the massacre of his family, George Altidor married Florence Dalton. Shortly after they married, the two relocated to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, a quiet suburb outside of Tulsa. Since then, they have maintained a secluded life, and this is their last known location. Despite her potential connection to the case, Florence Dalton was never formally interviewed by detectives, nor was she ever considered a suspect. Investigators have said there were no fingerprints or weapons recovered, only circumstantial evidence, unanswered questions, and a timeline that still doesn't fully make sense. They have stated that George Altidor is still a suspect. The community remains divided. Some believe George Altidor got away with this crime, while others believe George would have never done this to his family. The case eventually went cold. Though it was reopened in 2007, investigators stated they still didn't have significant evidence to bring forth charges or make an arrest. But they have stated this case remains active.
What's really critical is that someone out there knows something, and if they have information, they bring it forward. That would be more helpful than anything that we probably have already.
A young mother devoted to her family, a grandmother who traveled to this country to lend her love and support, a 2-year-old full of life and innocence, and a newborn who just barely entered the world. 4 lives, 3 generations, all taken inside one place they should have been safe. And decades later, The truth of what happened still remains unknown.
I'm hoping the city of Miramar, the public, higher up, whoever.
Whoever knows something about this case, please come forward.
And there is nothing that God will not solve. And we do have a conviction beyond hope that this case is already solved.
And I'm just telling them today, get ready. You will be found.
No story should be forgotten. No voice should go unheard. Sending my deepest condolences and prayers to the family and friends. May Marie, Theresia, Samantha, and Sabrina rest in peace. If you have any information related to this case, no matter how small, please call the Broward County Crime Stoppers. Until the next time, I'm Lock Jewel, and thank you for watching Shades of Crime. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and remember to pray. God's listening.